Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. We're back with another video, another team preview for 2021 Season 4, and today we're discussing the London Spitfire. Now this is a team I'm very passionate about. I did support these guys, so I might be a bit biased, but try not to read into that too much. I'm trying my hardest to cover that up. So let's treat this like I am just your average Joe making his takes about the Overwatch League. These guys have an interesting history. Their team's been around since the start of Overwatch League in Season 1, in which they won. They did look inconsistent during that year. However, in Stage 1, and possibly you could throw Stage 2 in there as well, these guys looked very powerful, being the only team to really rival NYXL and taking home the Stage 1 trophy. Later, we'd go on to see these guys fail until it came round to playoffs of Season 1, in which they had a massive run, beating Philadelphia Fusion in the grand finals of the inaugural season, and they took it home. Season 2, however, they disappointed, with a very similar roster to the one before. They managed to get to play-ins. They qualified for the playoffs from play-ins, then fell at the first hurdle. These guys did not make a playoff run whatsoever in the Season 2 playoffs. Going into Season 3, they had a full Korean rebuild. Now these guys actually looked alright at the start when they were playing in NA against many of the other North American teams. However, coronavirus definitely cucked these guys full power. They went to APAC and would only ever really get wins against Chengdu and sometimes Hangzhou. It was a disappointing season for the franchise. However, they were coming into it with no expectations. Coming into Season 4, they are going for another rebuild. However, this time, it's a Western approach. It's less of a rebuild and more of a promotion with a few refurbishments. So, the roster. These guys picked up the entire British Hurricane core, apart from Daned, which I think is disappointing, but we'll get to that when we talk about the projectile position. Starting things off, we've got the tank line, and you've got the main tank Haddy. This guy is phenomenal, and along with Mulfig, the off-tank, I think these guys can definitely get quite a lot of wins here, though we might not expect them to do. I think this tank line was a highlight of the British Hurricane roster, and I have seen a certain Instagram account saying that the tank line is the mistake of this roster, but I think they might just not have watched much EU Contenders. This tank line, if you have watched any of British Hurricane's games, is a highlight of what that team was, and they are definitely good enough to be playing in the Overwatch League, among some of the best. Then we've got the support line. These guys are familiar, even if you have only watched the Overwatch League. We've got Kellex and Ripper. Now, these guys were both in the Overwatch League for a period of time. However, soon enough, they did get dropped and got moved down to EU Contenders. Well, since that, I think these guys have been grinding away on the British Hurricane, and I really think they have improved quite a lot. I still think the support line is going to be the weakness of this roster, despite them having Overwatch League experience. But that being said, it's a very good weakness to have. This support line is by no means bad, and for these guys to be your weakness must say a lot about the rest of the team. Now the DPS line. Let's start things off with Sparkar. This guy won't be able to play until June 10th, which might be a bit difficult for this team, as he was a core member of the British Hurricane roster. He was also another standout player from that team. Sparkar, I think, is a very good player and will definitely be able to hang with the average players in the Overwatch League at the hit scan position. It's disappointing that he can't play for a large amount of the season, as then they'll have to run their slightly worse DPS player hybrid if a double hit scan meta rolls around. Let's go on to hybrid then. This guy came from Team Doge in EU Contenders, and he didn't look too terrible. I think a large reason why he was picked up was because they needed that hit scan player before the Valiant exploded. So they picked up Hybrid, as he is a nice bit of GB talent to have on the London Spitfire team to please the fans. What I mentioned there was until the Valiant exploded, and this is because this team managed to get their hands on Shax from the LA Valiant. This is a very big pickup for the roster. Not only does this mean that until Sparkar comes they still have the ability to play double hit scan, but also Shax was one of the best tracers we saw in the league last season, and the best Western tracer, without a doubt. He was a phenomenal player all season last year on the tracer, and also his Sombra looked quite good. I think that Shax will really be able to shine, helping this team with the veteran experience that he has in the Overwatch League, and be able to help the individual players as well, as a sort of a player coach. I think Blase will be able to do this as well. Talking about Blase, he is on this roster. He comes from Houston Outlaws, and before that Boston Uprising, and we really didn't see much impressive from him. However, both of these teams were very poor performing, so Blase might not have been the cause of that. Blase has a phenomenal Doomfist, and from what we saw in the Steel Series Invitational, a pretty good May as well. I think that Blase will really succeed on this team, being able to help many rookie talents find their bearings in the Overwatch League and make a really solid team. The only concern about Blase is if these guys decide to put him on McCree, which shouldn't be an issue with Hybrid, Sparkar and Shax, all of whom are hitscan players. Now, I am a bit upset they didn't pick up Daned for this team. However, I understand it. Daned, I think, was still a very cool part of the British Hurricane roster. I thought he had a great Echo and also a really good Doomfist. But Blase also has a great Doomfist, and maybe they might be missing that great Echo player. But 5 DPS players might have seemed a bit too much for this roster, and I think if you're going to cut apart, Daned would have made sense. Looking at the roster now, however, I think you definitely would rather get rid of Hybrid than Daned, at least after Sparkar comes along. Overall, I see these guys being ranked in 2 common positions by other people. Most people have them in 18th, in front of Vancouver and Paris. However, I've also seen many people, after the Steel Series Invitational, placing them above Boston and Houston as well. For a more in-depth breakdown of where I think these guys, along with the other teams, will be placed, you'll have to wait for my power rankings video to come out. But as a teaser, I think these guys are going to be closer to the Boston level than the Paris one. Thanks so much for watching the entire video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure if you did, you like, comment, subscribe and share. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell me down below what you think of the London Spitfire. Do you think these guys are going to do well next season? Do you think people are underrating them or even overrating them potentially? See you in the next one. Goodbye.